2022 was an interesting year for games. I didn't play many of the latest things released. In fact, I spent a good portion of the first part of the year just playing FNAF Security Breach to its completion. It didn't help that I had COVID, which then stopped me recording. So then I turned to the PS4 version to keep myself busy, and then end up with regrets. So yeah, by the time I finally started playing new stuff, got back into recording for the channel and that, yeah, it just took me a while to catch up on some stuff. Thankfully, I was a bit worried with how things have been going site-wise and that I would stop playing games, and I was really worried about that. But thankfully, I actually played quite a few this year. I do have to thank Magic Merv for recording several series with me, some games which will turn up on this list. But yeah, I think we should just get straight into this list without me waffling on too much, because I know that's what you're all here for. But yeah, no, let's get into this. I do though have a few things, a few games that I want to touch on that I didn't play enough, or I've talked about before, that I just wanted to quickly cover. Starting out with Summer of 58, I got absolutely 0% complete progress or completion in this. Even though I went back after recording, I recorded for an hour. I didn't realize how long I'd sat there in the same room for. Basically, I can't pass comment on this game because I got nowhere. It is visually, I mean, it's very atmospheric, and, you know, I'm not here to pass any judgment on the developer, which I think is like one guy. It's very atmospheric, but and it seems to be my type of game where it's very narrative driven. But I just couldn't get anywhere because visually, I couldn't see. I couldn't see to pick stuff up. The story is told through text, a lot of which is very tiny at the bottom of the screen. There's no accessibility options to change anything. I understand, especially with an indie developer, you know, no voice acting hiring or whatever, and especially to then make it available to more languages. But yeah, I just couldn't do anything with it. I went back after recording, had a few, you know, I had some guides and that to help where I should be picking stuff up. And I just couldn't get into it because it just, like I say, it's very text-based story-wise. So yeah, unfortunately cannot pass comment on that. But very pretty, and I'm very unhappy with the people that have given it good reviews, but then demanding, abusing Steam's refund policy by demanding a refund because the game only takes an hour and a half to complete. Those people, just shame on you. I've spent an hour in the same room. I can't play it, and even I haven't requested a refund. So yeah, just that's disgusting. But I also went back to Untitled Goose Game this time to play cooperatively with Magic Merv, and playing it cooperatively was an amazing experience. I think I enjoyed it more as a single player experience, but cooperatively it's just so different. You can divide and conquer, you know, against the different NPCs and stuff. It was just fun, and it was great to go back to, even though I'd played it before, was not bored, and like I say, cooperatively adds a whole new aspect. So if you get the chance to play that game in cooperative mode, I highly recommend, especially after you've played it, I think, really on single player. This 2022 saw the full release of Power Wash Simulator. I talked about it ad nauseum last year, but we finally got the end mark of the career mode, and they also added cooperative mode. I have spent over 120 hours in that game just from playing it on my own and then playing it with Mulu and Magic Merv. And I never tire of it. It's so relaxing, so much fun. Highly recommend, especially now it's a full release. Definitely go check that out. Next up was the Stanley Parable 2. or Ultra Deluxe, as they called it. Basically, this was a console release version of the game. It was also released on PC, with extra content, and I think your mileage can vary whether you think it's worth going back to. I said last year, if you haven't played it already, if you haven't played the, is it 2013? I don't remember the original version. If you haven't played that version, I highly recommend you play this version. But yeah, it's not supposed to be a sequel. It plays into a lot of those tropes of sequels and people demanding more from games that really don't need a sequel. I love the commentary it has on that kind of thing. The fact that it's got new lines recorded by Kevin Brighting is just my dream come true. And the fact that my very good friend Mulu and channel supporter got me my own reassurance bucket for Christmas just says how much they knew I loved it.
Yes, I love that bucket.
I highly recommend. There's not much to say. I think I would be ruining, spoilering and saying too much. There is new stuff, but at the same time, it's pretty much just the same game, expanded. So yeah, I knew I couldn't talk about that too much here because I had talked about it last year. But the other game that I played this year, it's no 23, in 2022, that I just did not play enough of for me to comment on at length, was the big one, Elden Ring. I suck at From Software games. It doesn't matter what I do. I can get along with them and that, but I just generally suck. I'm really bad at learning some patterns and stuff like that. I get frustrated. But the accessibility, not with accessible stuff, because unfortunately the menus and that are still quite difficult for me to see, especially when you go to the merchants and stuff like that. And a lot of text and whatnot, a lot of the menus I really struggled with. But this game just, it really helps you, even though it starts out straight away, with a kick. I felt like I was never punished. I actually progressed further by dying. I got my steed. I got story cutscenes and that. I believe this was co-written or had some writing from Game of Thrones' creator George R.R. Martin. But it's just visually beautiful, and the combat is, yes, difficult, but at the same time it is fair, and there is some lead-in, and I feel like when you go to the different areas, it's like experiencing completely different games. Unfortunately, like I say, I just did not get far enough into this to really warrant too much in-depth discussion. But I really recommend it. I'm really looking forward to playing more. I was going to play more. I just, like I say, one, I kept hitting a wall with a boss, and two, I just got carried away by other games and just haven't gone back to this. And unfortunately, my PS4 only has so much space on it, so yeah, that's why I haven't. But I know it's ending up on a lot of people's Game of the Year lists, and I even from the very tiny, minuscule amount that I've played, I can understand why. But for my main list, I'm going to rank the games I played from, I say worst, but they weren't really awful. I had issues with them. From least good to best. Starting out with Aperture Desk Job. Oh, just Valve, please, I'm begging you. Just make a full game. That's all we need. That's all we want. It's very nice to see these very cool tech demos that you keep using to go alongside your new hardware. But just release an actual game. not these half-hour things that taunt us with, oh look, it's J.K. Simmons back as Cave Johnson. Don't you remember him? Don't you love him? Aren't you glad we brought him back? Yes. But, okay, here's the thing. So, to explain, Aperture Desk Job is a in Portal universe game using the very same humour and that. And it is a tech demo for their new Steam Deck, their Nintendo Switch ripoff, where you can portably play your PC games. And it's a half-hour experience where you shoot stuff. You don't even have portals. You're in the Portal universe where you shoot a turret toilet. And that's pretty much it. I think what's most interesting about it is that it originally, in Portal 2, they were going to have it where Cave Johnson ended up in a big computer, and then he went mad and was miserable from being trapped in his computer, and he was asking like the player to kill him because he was miserable. They've taken that and kind of implemented it here, where it turns out he's in this massive metal head, and he's just like, please, just unplug me, please, when you finally get there. So it's interesting that they've implemented that here. But otherwise you're with this core who is well written and a lot of fun, but because the game is so short, it's just there and gone. I enjoyed this at the time. I didn't really want to say too much at the time because it was fun to see Valve putting a game out. It was fun to have something, especially like I say, J.K. Simmons. I mean, he's an amazing actor anyway, but to have him back as Cave Johnson was just chef kiss. I am so gutted they didn't get Ellen McLean back for even just as a quick Carolyn line or something like that. That was disappointing. It's fun to see that they've got that sense of humour now that could easily be put into a whole new game. And I have constantly said I do not want another Portal. I think Portal 2 as one of my favourite games of all time, Portal 2 is perfect as it is, and it does not need to be ruined. However, and I said this when I played Portal Reloaded, I would love to see more from this universe. It's one of those things where I'm like, leave Chell alone and maybe look elsewhere. I don't know. I think it's that kind of wanting to have your cake and eat it too, I guess. Or you know, I mean, I know it's a lie, but anyway, I just, yeah, I kind of want them to leave it alone, but at the same time, then they bring out this kind of thing, and you're like, that humour, that wit, that essence of fun is still there, and yet they wasted it on a shooting game where you're stationary and you're just sat there in one space, and you're using, I guess if you're using a Steam Deck, it's that fun of motion controls that, you know, we've had for what, a decade or so now, Valve, so don't make out like it's a new thing. I was just genuinely disappointed. I just felt like it could have been so much more, and we've not seen anything come from it. It's not like they've gone, you know what, we really enjoyed playing that, making that, especially after Half-Life Alyx. You know, let's make a full game of this. Nothing has come of it. So yeah, super disappointed. Next up is DayZ. Now, I will preface this quite easily by saying this is a survival game. This is a zombie survival game where your main thing is to survive in the world. And, you know, you can play with friends and stuff like that. I am not, and I've said this before, I'm a very story-driven or gameplay-driven gamer. I am not a fan of these kind of games where it's just open-ended, where it's just survival, where you build your base and you maintain your base, or you're going out hunting and maintaining yourself. I've played games like that in the past. I played The Sims 2 back in the day and stuff like that. The problem is as somebody with OCD tendencies, I can get very bogged down in that kind of thing where I will just focus. And I had that with this game where I will go out. I'm trying to raise money to help fund the base building and stuff like that. I'm going out hunting and all that stuff. But I become very OCD with it. And then I get to a point where you buy the most expensive thing in the game. And then it's like, what do I do now? And that's what I find with it. And that's okay if you're with friends and you're setting up challenges or you're doing different things and that. I played this as a cooperative experience and that was fun. But this game has so many issues. It's so stupid that you have to find a server where you have to download loads of mods to find a game that is remotely, feasible to use. I played with Magic Merv, and we went on the main game, the base game, and you cannot find each other. It took over an hour and a half for us to even meet up. Now, fine, he knows the map better, but accessible wise, this game is awful. I cannot see anything. Everything is tiny. And the game does not work with Microsoft Magnifier switched on. The whole thing freaks out to the point where it just closes down. Not closes down, but it doesn't let you open the window, which is often happens with some games. Or it tethers your cursor to the top corner of your screen and will not let you move it. And then you have to task manager to close the window to get access to your mouse again. It was so stupid. So you then have a map system where everything is tiny. You have an inventory system where I was literally sat there with, do I have it at to hand? With a hand magnifier to my screen to be able to make out what half of the stuff said. Thankfully, then I started to learn what some things look like, the basic stuff like your bandage and stuff like that. And when we figured out hotkeying, that helped. But it is visually awful from a gaming disabled standpoint. It was painful. And there was so many times where I was just stood there saying to Merv, where are you? Because he would go and the draw distance would just make it impossible for me to see. So then he'd have to come back and I'm like, okay. Now, when we had the winter update that then put snow on, well, at least with the server that we were using, when it put snow down on the ground, it made some stuff easier to see. Especially like finding people and that. But at the same time, a lot of stuff was just silhouettes. And when your buddy's name is in white and you're having to walk up to a tree or some other building to be able to then find your friend, that's ridiculous. And again, I get it. If you're normal sighted, it's fine. It's just me complaining because I can't see, blah, blah, blah. But it was just a miserable experience from that kind of thing, because then they're off having fun and I'm there going, can you tell me where you are? And that's not their fault. They try to be as helpful as possible. But I'm just there going, okay. And of course, like seeing items for looting, I have to walk up to everything to see if a bit of text comes up. Whereas, friends can run in the building, just have a quick glance around and be like, right, nothing here, run on. So I'm taking way too much time. I'm not getting any of the fun. It was just visually awful. And yeah, you shouldn't have to go. I think it's so silly that I get it. There are servers to make, for different people want different things. That's fine. But I don't get why the main game, this game that has been out for so long, and has been in, early access or whatever for so long, how it is still not up to snuff. It's so glitchy as well. I didn't get on with this one. It's fun to play with friends, and if you are lucky, as lucky as I was to have friends that will help you and be patient with you, then you can have fun up to a point. But then you get to a point where you're just like, what more is there to do? It's not my kind of game. Like I say, I will easily put my hand up and acknowledge that. I can understand why other people have fun with it, but it just was not up my alley. Next up is Stray. Yes, the cute kitty game is this low down on the list, but only because I just didn't play much of it. For one reason, it's not the most visually accessible. It is definitely cute, and so much detail has been put into the cat animations to make it realistic. I genuinely felt attached and protective of this little furball. But yeah, some of the puzzles were just not easy to see what you were supposed to do or where to pick stuff up. When you meet up with B12, the little drone, he has dialogue, which is really difficult to see, and the game seems a little all over the place whether it's going to be okay with you using Microsoft Magnifier. I was able to zoom in sometimes, and then other times the game just went, no, I don't want to work at the same time as this. It is definitely cute. It is but I found the platforming a little repetitive because you're not jumping. You're just waiting until it lets you jump on a certain item because the animations are the same over and over again. So there's no like jumping onto a ledge and then struggling to hold on to it if you just miss the edge or whatever. It's just it won't let you jump up or down until you're in the right place. And it just took away an amount of fun away from platforming to have that choice taken away from you. It is visually, I think this is the steampunk game that everybody, that was the cyberpunk game that everybody was hoping Cyberpunk 2077 would be. But with cats. It's adorable. And I don't know. I just didn't get far into it. I look forward to playing more. But it is just a bit of a struggle, visually speaking. But yeah, just animations and all that stuff has been meticulously handled, and kudos to the commitment that the developers have put into to making it feel like you're actually playing as a as a cat. I was gonna say playing as a game. I mean, you're playing a game. Next up is Struggling. Now, I played this cooperatively with Magic Merv, who is not this kind of game's player. I introduced this to him because I really wanted to give it a go. It looked like fun. It looked like there might be some Iron Bread level frustration with the controlling. But I thought if you're working together, then, it would be fun and that. And it was. I enjoyed it. Magic Merv, however, did not. He got frustrated with it. I think he found it tedious. We were recording it for a series. I will still put out what we have once I've edited it down. Yeah, so you play as this scrotum-shaped, like, abomination that, for some reason, I don't know what it is. Apparently, a good couple of the games on this list have a very FromSoft style intros. Yeah, it has this weird backstory, and then you're playing as this test subject at a laboratory that then breaks loose, and you can play this single player. I have not tried it yet. But you can also play it cooperatively, as I said, I did. And you control an arm each, grabbing and pulling along and stuff. And you're basically just trying to get through the very hazardous environments while working together as each arm. You then, quite surprisingly, start to unlock new abilities, like the ability to detach your arms and use them separately from your body, which is when more of the frustration started to, because it's not the most perfect system mechanically. It can be a little finicky and also not so obvious. And despite the fact that this game has a very commended high contrast option where it makes the arms more visible and more distinct so you can tell which one is you, it has these moments where it zooms a long way out and you're trying to see the little character and what the arms are doing, because it's like, look at this environment, there is a crane at the top, use your arm to go control the levers, and you're like, where is my arm? For the most part it's not too bad, but it has those moments where it just zooms out and you're like, well, thanks game, I now can't see what's going on. Great. Which then, of course, when you're playing with somebody else, makes it frustrating for them, because they're like, do that, and you're like, do what? I can't see. I enjoyed it. I understand why Magic Verve got frustrated with it. I definitely want to play more. If I have to play it single player, then fine. At least there's an option to do that. It's not like Haze-like games which force you to play cooperatively, even if you have no friends. At least you can play it. There is that option. So if you want a game that's single player, that's just this side of frustrating, if you like a bit of challenge in your gameplay, especially in your platforming, then this is the one. But yeah, it has its moments. But I love the idea. I love the art style. It's this 2D kind of, something very Flash animation-y about it. And just the random cries of agony that come out of, I don't even remember the name of the blob now. He has a name. I don't remember what it was. It was a good while ago that we played this. Yeah, it goes for this whole very hillbilly style. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed it. But yeah, it's one of those games, say along the lines of Super Meat Boy or Iron Bread, where after a while you just start to hit your head against the brick wall and go, why will you not work? But yeah, that's struggling. Next up is Dark Deception. Another game I just did not play anywhere near as much as I would have liked to have played, but really recommend. It is so campy. It is so silly. It is a horror Pac-Man, which actually surprisingly is visually very helpful and accessible at times. You have this map that you follow. You're supposed to go along around this map to pick up gems, while you're being hunted down by these different monsters. Unfortunately, unlike Pac-Man, you cannot see where these monsters are on the map. So you've got no idea how close or where they're coming from. That I thought was unfair. I don't know if there's a mod. I don't know if there's a setting where you can change that. And if there is, please let me know. But yeah, I found that a little annoying. But otherwise, yeah, the map is very clear for seeing where you need to go to pick up orbs, gems, whatever they're called. I love the different environments. And like I say, just the woman that's like helping, and I use that term loosely, helping, is like the love child of Anne Robinson and Jennifer Saunders' fairy godmother in Shrek 2. She's like, oh yes, I'm Bayonetta's mother, and it's so, she just sounds like she's orgasming every other word. It's so campy, it's so silly. It's like watching a Carry On movie, but with more horror. It's just silly, and I just found it fun as a throwaway game. If you're after something just a little different from Pac-Man, then I highly recommend it. I've not played the multiplayer version, Mortals and Monsters. But yeah, no, I just found it a good laugh, and it was a silly throwaway game. So yeah, if you like that kind of game, then I definitely recommend, especially because it even saves your progress. Even though you die, you can come back and your progress has not been lost. So, yeah, no, really enjoyed that. Just as a silly game, nothing too serious. Next up, we have got Lost and Hound. This game, I stand by. Just the acting in this game is the best. No, it's not fair. So, Lost and Hound, for anybody who didn't see my video, is a very, it's a blind-centric, accessible game where it focuses very heavily on using, you're playing as this little Yorkie, this little Yorkie, Corgi, sorry, this little Corgi sniffer dog, as you to solve puzzles and do these investigations where you have no right to be. It's like watching an episode of Murder, She Wrote, but with a dog. You play a Biscuit, this Corgi, with this foster owner who clearly has some mental health issues. Either that or he's a serial killer that doesn't want to get caught. I wasn't quite clear on that because he acts sus as all hell. And yeah, you solve these mysteries by sniffing and listening using echolocation to find where stuff is. Here's the thing. Obviously, there are very few games that are specifically geared towards disabled people, especially sight-impaired ones. And the fact that an indie developer has taken so much effort to make this accessible, and to not just be like a one area experience with some noises and stuff like that. It's an actual adventure game. Is commendable, and it has a designated bark button. So much like Stray, you know, I get to be a cat in that game and a doggy in this one where I get to bark. It is adorable. There is something very childlike about it, which makes me wonder, because a lot of disabled geared games are not very interesting for all gamers. I think this is like, because you're doing a good amount of investigating, but I think it's probably more geared towards younger people than necessarily adults. I don't know if it's just the bright colours, which are very distinct and great if you're not completely blind but sight impaired. It makes distinguishing things a lot easier. The thing is with all that commendation, I do feel like, I feel bad making fun of it. But this game, it just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's on purpose or by accident. It is just one of those things you cannot help but sit there and just absolutely rip to shreds. And I kind of feel bad for doing that, because here is a game where I can sit and not be struggling to see to play it, but still enjoy it. And yet clearly the resources have been put into that as opposed to, say, the voice acting. Oh, the voice acting. I love it. I love it. It's so bad it's good. It's the room level of it. If you ever, you know, you got The Room, the movie. It's that kind of, it's that level acting. It's just the best. I love it. My favourite to this day is still the woman, the poor woman, whose child has gone missing, who's wandered off in a storm. And she's like, he's never done this before. But since his father left, he's been acting up. And oh my. Oh. And then the writing, I swear it's been done on purpose. It has to have been done on purpose. There's no way this was done by accident. Because you literally go like 5 feet away. And I use this as a short because my reaction was just, to this day, it sticks in my brain. Whenever I think about that game, this is all I think about. Is 5 feet away, sat in a cop car, and these police officers. And they actually go, "Can you believe that woman? Oh, we went out looking for her kid for an hour. He's probably just run off. We'll wait until the till the K9 unit turns up in a week." And I'm like, what? What? It's so funny and silly in the most awful way. It's an interesting game. I highly commend it for its, like I say, accessibility and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just, it's a little janky. I stand by the fact that, because I tried a different headset, and determining whether something is in front of you or behind you when it plays the tone is really difficult, to the point that you have to turn sideways to be able to then determine either way. But I highly commend it. And I thank the developers for giving me something that, one, I got a good laugh out of, but two, that is easy to access. And for giving me a bark button. That's all I want. Just give me a bark button, and let my puppy be cute and fluffy. No, yeah, Lost and Hound, great accessible game, but needs quite a bit of work. Yeah, it's a little janky. But anyway, next up is The Pedestrian. Another indie game. This one I was waiting for forever. I saw the demo of it when it was on like Indiegogo or one of those crowdfunding sites. And it's a 2D puzzle platformer, which takes like the Flash version of Portal, very much to heart, I feel, and uses road signs. So you have to follow this character, you know, the kind of stick figure that you see on road signs, and take them through different puzzles on signs. I did struggle with this one a little bit because although Microsoft Magnifier worked with it, it did, just because of the mechanics in the game regarding moving the signs and stuff, because you have to connect in situations where you have multiple signs, you have to connect them up, and it will tether itself to whichever one you're stood on, whichever panel. Microsoft Magnifier did struggle with that, and unfortunately a lot of this game is like, it's very focused on the 3D background, like the world that these signs are in. So it then means that the signs are quite small. There's not really a way to, you can zoom a little bit, but not much, and you do end up struggling quite a bit to see. Some of the puzzles, they get progressively harder, as is the way of puzzle games. But there are simple ones when my brain, as is the way when I play puzzle games, just shut off. And I would stare at these panels for ages on end, and just be like, what? And it would turn out that I was just thinking overcomplicating it, thinking way too hard. This was just a lot of fun. There was no talking. It's got this very pretty kind of Parisian style music that flows and sways and waltzes along to the action as you're going. And it's very relaxing. It's very chill, even when you're doing like these puzzles that are making your brain just go, what the hell? I really enjoyed it. I look forward to playing more. I didn't complete it just because using the magnifier is problematic at times with it. And that can get frustrating, which takes away from the fun of the game. But I'm glad this finally came out. Like I say, it took a while to come out. And I'm glad it finally did. And I'm glad I finally sat down to play it, because it took me even a while. I had it downloaded and I just didn't get round to playing it. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect. I think, I mean, I'm getting now into the games where, I really, really enjoyed them. Um, but yeah, it's not perfect, but I do recommend it, especially if you like a good puzzle game. I can imagine sitting and talking to a friend, working through it, maybe share playing it or whatever. I don't think it's out on consoles, but if you can play it on PC, I definitely recommend it. Next up, though, is a PlayStation game. One of the rare ones that I played this year, and it is Oddworld Soulstorm. Took me 18 months to finally get round to this. Yeah, okay, I might have had it hyped up in my brain. This is a remake. New and Tasty was the remake, the modern update of Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. And Oddworld Soulstorm is a reimagining, modernization of Abe's Exodus, the follow-up. And it takes this very serious, Mad Max-esque approach to its storytelling. So much so that I felt it took a lot away from the classic PlayStation 1 era games, which had a very... I kept moaning it was because that they'd taken away the fart button. And I think that's just because, yes, you could say older games have matured with its audience. But the fart button, as much as it sounds silly for me to reference, is it brought that levity to a very dark world. You're talking about these enslaved beings that are turned into food. They've escaped. They're on the run. It's it's a very serious matter. But you had things like Abe, calling to the fellow Mudokons for those who don't know, it's a platform game where you're encouraged to save your fellow Mudokons, the alien race, fish-like aliens. And you do that by communicating. And in the old games, you had like a speak menu even, where you would get to practice which buttons did which word. Yeah, hello, and all that stuff. That's not my Abe input. I love doing my Abe voice, but I'm not going to do it here. I'm a bit tired and hot and bothered. This room gets so hot sometimes. But there was so much, the humour, the fact that you could fart and one of the other characters would go giggle in immature silliness. That added so much to it, and that is gone. There's a personality gone from this game that I just like, okay, let's just get all dour and serious, and that's fine. But then you have to contend with the scenery that zooms you out so far, where I was sat there going, where am I? Where am I going? How do I see where to go? And especially in the tutorial scene, the first scene, where you're running through this burning down building and there's fire and you can't see the platforms. I just really struggled with that. And to then, later on, you're having to control the sligs and the, all the other characters, and you're talking and you're trying to avoid and you're stealthing and stuff like that. And the scene is so zoomed out, and I'm like, I cannot see where to go. And then you're just dying over and over again. It's like, okay. And they've tried to go for that we expect you to die. We expect you, Super Meat Boy this, just die over and over again, and you'll figure it out eventually. And that's fine, because then you feel like you've accomplished something when you do it. But it was just on this side of tedium, the wrong side of tedium, and I love that a lot of the elements from Abe's Exodus are still here, with a lot of the very... The platforming levels, the way they are laid out, a lot of the mechanics and that, they're very familiar and very, true to the original. I just felt it went a little too far on the I'm mature now and going through my emo phase or whatever. Uh, yeah, I just felt like there was no need for it to zoom out anywhere near as much as it did. There should be an option to zoom in, to at least see a bit closer to where you're stood. But yeah, I'm glad they've remade Abe's Exodus. Abe's Exodus does not get the attention it deserves. It was essentially like DLC for the first game. It's quite a short game, the original version, and it didn't do much more. But I'm so glad it's getting the attention it deserved. And fingers crossed, really, that it does well enough that we get more. Because I know, Oddworld Inhabitants, they've always wanted to do like a 5-game series that has just never happened. So I hope they finally, I hope we get like Munch's Odyssey and Stranger's Wrath remade as well for modern audiences. I assume this did well. I don't know, but yeah, I was a bit. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm glad. I don't know what it was. I came away feeling super disappointed, to be honest. You never know. Maybe when I complete it, I'll be like, actually, I'm glad I stuck with it. But for what I played, when I played it, maybe I just wasn't in the mood. But it just did not do it for me. So it was a bit disappointing, to be honest. That's all I can. It wasn't bad at all. I just came away going, yeah, okay, fine. Next up, we have got Cult of the Lamb. This was one I was not expecting to be as good or enjoyable as it was. It got suggested to me via a direct message on Twitter. So thank you to that person for suggesting it. This Cult of the Lamb apparently saw South Park's Woodland Critters Christmas and was like, I need to make that into a game. You essentially play as this character has been sacrificed and comes back possessed by this demon thing, and you create your little cult with these little animal followers that you can name or not name, and you can pick which animal you have and stuff like that. And then you do this roguelike dungeon crawling. It's very Binding of Isaac, and yet somehow, even though I did struggle with this game because a lot of the colours blend together, especially in the dungeons, somehow, despite that, I do way better at this game than I do at Binding of Isaac. I don't know what it is, but for some reason I suck at Binding of Isaac and kind of kick ass in this way. But yeah, you have these roguelike dungeons, procedurally generated, and you go around and you collect new followers for your cult. But then you have RPG elements where you have to maintain your cult and keep them happy, and you send them off to do little chores like mining or digging to find supplies, or to build houses, and then you have to, the supplies they found, you use to cook meals for them. So then you have to go up to them and say, excuse me, evil fox, go get yourself a meal, dinner's up, hi evil squirrel, go help yourself. It's so bizarre and yet so fun. It's so cathartic at times, just the combat system. And to come back and manage these followers and keep them happy and stuff like that, or prepare them for sacrifice. I just found it really enjoyable. It's not my normal kind of game. It's not one that I would necessarily have gone searched out had I not been suggested it. I don't know what the person thought of me when they sent it to me, the suggestion. But yeah, no, I just, like I say, it just makes me think of South Park Woodland Critters, and I was just waiting for him to go, praise be our Lord and Saviour. Now let's bathe in blood. It's really enjoyable. It's very tongue-in-cheek. And I recommend it, especially if you like these kind of dungeon crawler, but like your RPGs as well. It's just bizarre, but fun. That's probably my best. Again, not completed it, but played enough that I was just like, I need to play more of this. Thankfully, magnifier works with it, so it means I can follow some of the text because there's no talking in it. So it is very text-based, but yeah, I can use the magnifier, so yay! Next up is It Takes Two. Oh, It Takes Two. I'd been waiting to play this for quite a while. And then I finally got to play it because Magic Merv very kindly agreed to play it with me and make it into a video series. It was our first series together. It was his first platformer in like however many decades. He's not a fan of platformers, so the fact that he agreed to do it was I was very grateful. You play as this very on the rocks divorcing couple who break it to their daughter, their very special daughter. And I say special not because of any, because apparently she has magical powers. This game, if you're talking, okay, so they tell her daughter, and then she's not happy, so she goes to this book that she has randomly found, and she shows these dolls that she's created in their image, and goes, look, Dr. Hakim says you need to love each other and be good to each other. And then she cries on the dolls, and her tears turn her parents into the dolls. But meanwhile, their husks of a body stay where they were. So then you cut back every now and then to the daughter who's walking around the house, who's just found out her parents are divorcing, who's walking around feeling completely neglected because she goes into, Daddy, I hope, can we do this please, Daddy? And then he doesn't respond because his conscience isn't in his body. He's just this husk sat on the end of the bed. So she's like, well, okay then, I'll come back later. And she disappears on this poor child. And there's so much you could come away. And I have to thank Mulu for their comments during the series, because I thought it was interesting to see another person's thoughts on the situation. But if you take this game for the gameplay, a lot of fun. It tries out a lot of different mechanics. Unfortunately, I do feel it goes on a bit too long, and it seems to be struggling for mechanics to do in the different areas as you get further into the game. But it was fun to see how they use, like, in a very Land of the Giants style scenario, where, you know, these little dolls, it did seem a bit like, it didn't seem set on its aspect ratio, like what size they were, if they were like 1/16 to everything else or whatever. That seemed to change over, and it would have been nice if it had been a bit more consistent. I get that they probably needed to change it to make things more flexible regarding gameplay, but yeah, it was all over the place what ratio they were to everything else. But it was fun to see how they used items, you know, in the grand world kind of thing. Gameplay, it was a lot of fun, very responsive. The puzzles were fun, and playing it with another person was just enjoyable. But then you take the story, and these people are awful. The parents are the worst, and I'm sorry. Like, so they're all friendly at the end, and it turns out they kept the super horny book. It was like, oh yeah, you get together, you're lovers, and you're like, okay, can you please like look away? And he's like, oh kiss, and I swear he came at the end. It was kind of gross, to be honest. Their love solves everything, and I'm like, okay, get over it, dude. But so they're all friendly at the end and all that, and they kept the book, which is just weird. This book that their daughter probably shouldn't have had in the first place. And all I'm thinking is, wait, so if they go through a rough patch again, what? They got to go through some life, life or death situations? Do they need to be turned back into dolls so that they start appreciating each other again? Like, the only reason why they came together was because they nearly died numerous. I mean, you couldn't die. This is a game where it promotes, you know, working together but there's no risk. Like, unless you both die at the same time, there's no real risk. And yeah, just story-wise and character-wise, you came away going, oh. And you think at the beginning it could, you know, it will explore, you know, the effect of divorce on a child, and you know, the struggles between these two people. And when it boils down to, she works too much because the father stays at home with the kid, you're like, okay. And you're like, this put a strain on a relationship. And you're like, okay. It didn't feel very well developed. It just frustrated me. And then you get to the accessibility side of things, where they add in this text-to-speech menu reader that then doesn't help you with button prompts at all. And maybe I was blessed when we played another game and it did give help like that. But yeah, it just felt it wasn't very helpful. And it had these sections where it zoomed all the way out, so your character was this tiny dot on the screen, maybe marked by a blue or green colour. And it's like, have at it. Survive this section, please. And I'm like, where am I? I cannot see anything. It felt like it was trying to be accessible, and then was like, yeah, we don't care about you in these sections. Hopefully you're with a sighted person to carry you through this bit, which is essentially what happened sometimes. It came down to telling Magic Merv just, yeah, you stay alive and I'll just whatever. It was really badly handled, I felt, at times with the gameplay. I know I said the rest of it was enjoyable, but those moments were not good. Yeah, I just came away feeling where they're friendly and that, and I'm like, wait, so really they'll only be nice to each other if they go through, get nearly killed or whatever. And what do they, and can we talk about their daughter's magic ability, please? That never gets covered. Does it happen again? I know I'm putting too much thought in a fictional character where when it ends, that's it. That's the end of their lives. But I'm just like, does she do it again? Is that, like, if they do a sequel, is that what's going to happen? Like, can we explore how she did this in the first place? Or was it all just a dream? You're never given that impression. It's so bizarre, but it's a very pretty game. I'm sorry, this game just left me like, oh, okay. The ending, honestly, I felt like I'd been slapped in the face, and I know Magic Merv felt the same. Gameplay wise and visually, a lot of fun, very inventive at times, a lot of fun characters. I hate what we did to the elephant. I will never forgive myself for that. But I enjoyed Moon Baboon, and other characters were a lot of fun. And as uncomfortable as he was at times, even Dr. Akeem was fun. I enjoyed the voice acting. Bizarrely, I enjoyed the actress who played May, the mother. I found her voice more tolerable when she was in doll form than when she was in actual human form. I don't know what. And unfortunately, Cody came across, I don't know what it was. He just made me think of Sean one of the Ashmore twins, actually. He just seemed very bland, but when he was in potato form, he was a lot more interesting. Yeah, it was fun to play. Definitely a fun cooperative experience, but story-wise, character-wise, these were awful people that made you just go, I'm supposed to root for them? Yeah, it was not very... So, that was It Takes Two. Next up is another cooperative game. It's As Dusk Falls, which hopefully by the time this goes up, I will have already uploaded and gone live so that you can understand what I'm talking about. Okay, As Dusk Falls is a choose your own adventure, very dialogue driven narrative game, kind of along the lines of the Until Dawns or the Walking Dead's, Telltale games or Supermassive Games series. And yet, done way better. It's not a scary game. It's a very dramatic, very thoughtful game where you're taught that, you can't just pick the right or wrong answer, or there's this very grey area for all the choices you make. You can think you're doing the right thing and it will come back later to bite you in the ass. It's 6 chapters long. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away story wise. Basically you're following this family moving across country for another job. You're following Vince, Michelle, their daughter Zoe, and Vince's dad Jim. They're your main people, but then you cut to this other family and you're following them, and then you're seeing how this all comes together. This story has intrigue, just dread. It does struggle in its second to last chapter. I get it was just setting up the pieces ready for the final chapter. The voice acting is okay. It's there. The funniest thing is, though, I spotted this. This got recommended to me by Steam when it first came out. Looked, I was just like, this, and again, I've played other choose your own adventure stories and stuff, but Magic Merv is not that kind of gamer. So but I saw it, and basically the art style, it doesn't have FM, it's not like full motion video. It's not fully animated. It has these like images that like fade into another image to animate, to make movement and stuff like that. It's like a picture book. My biggest issue with this style is I feel like some of the fades are way too long, especially when the scenes are quite fast moving. It can be quite, I don't know, nauseating is probably not the right word, but it did make me feel uncomfortable and struggle to fully focus on the images because they were flashing by so fast, but they were fading between each change. That would be my biggest issue with the style. But I mean, for an indie developer, I guess you got to go with what you can. Obviously, animating full 3D figures and that is quite expensive. But it looked so tacky because of this art style that I was not used to. I'm so used to full motion characters and stuff like that. To just see this picture book style, I was like, wow, that looks so cheap. And yet it was, the game was like £35, £40 on Steam. And I was like, what the hell? And it looks so tacky. And I messaged Magic Merv and I said, okay, you gotta see this, right? This looks like a lot of fun to take the mickey out of, right? And I'm like, we'll get through like a chapter and then that'll be it. No, you are hooked from the beginning. It is so good. The storytelling is so good. It's cliched. The voice acting, not the greatest, but you are so invested in these characters. You want to know what's happening in the next chapter. Each chapter is an hour and a half long. It is like watching a movie, 6 movies, like a movie series. And you're kind of like, you want to play more, but at the same time you're like, no, if I do too much, that'll be not good. But also this game has easily, for an indie game, this game has quite possibly some of the best accessibility options I have experienced, especially, I mean, in even some AAA games. It's not much, but what I do have is so useful. They have a text-to-speech for the menus. That got a little much. But I turned on the text-to-speech for the gameplay, and it helped infinitesimally. Try and say that word, sorry. It just, because you have a lot of quick time when there is gameplay that is not dialogue driven. There are quick time events. They're very simple, very basic, like swipe the mouse right or tap the enter button or something. But the text to speech actually tells you what to do. And you're like, wait, so I'm not struggling to see what button, which is in white on the screen. So then the thing is reading out your name, the person who has to do it, and what they've got to do. It was so helpful. And there were sections where there would be a newspaper article or some other text speech, and she would read it out. It was so helpful. It reads out the dialogue options when you wave your cursor over them. It was so helpful. And you can turn off, you can extend the QuickTime events timer. You can turn off choice timer. So you have time to listen to what's going on, to study what's going on, and to consider, especially because if you're playing this with a friend, as far as I know, you can play this solo. But I think you can have up to like 8 people playing this on like digital devices and on like phones. If you get the app, you can play this with a room code. It is so accessible and so much fun, and I highly recommend it. Like I say, hopefully I will upload this after that series has come out. But please check out those videos or play the game yourself. If you're after a good story, a good story driven, it ends a bit open, which has me crossing every possible appendage that that they will have either DLC or a second season. Because I need more. I need to know what happens from there on. Even though I don't know how much more of a story they could get out of these characters. At the same time, I need to know. I came away shook. I came away absolutely surprised by this. It does not look like much. It looks super tacky. But I guarantee you, this is definitely worth checking out. As is the second best game I played all year, which you're going to wonder if I had a head injury when you hear what it is. And to be fair, I have had several head injuries over the past year, but the second best game I played all year was Trombone Champ. I can't even say it and keep a straight face. This is insane. This is a basic rhythm game where you use your mouse as the slide on a trombone to play classical music. But it is so much more than that. And you know what? I thought I wasn't going to get far into this game because as I started playing, a lot of the screens have just insane, hilarious, absolutely tongue-in-cheek animations in the background, which unfortunately interfered with me being able to see the lines of where you're supposed to go for the notes. So I was like, oh, I can't play this game, this sucks. Except on this indie game, this little indie game, this silly throwaway game, they have accessibility. Not even kidding. Not only, so there are sections where you have to tap the mouse a lot. Not only have they thought about that and made that, made it so you don't have to do that if you have dexterity issues. They have an option to get rid of the animations from the back of the music playing. Now, admittedly, it makes it boring, but some of the animations are so bright and so active, it is so difficult to see, that to be able to turn those off and be able to play the game was just amazing. I cannot thank the developers enough for thinking about that. It is so much more thoughtful than a lot of AAA games or, as I said, other indie games. I was absolutely blown away. But the best thing about this game is it does not even remotely take itself seriously. This is dark deception levels of just absolute stupidity and silliness. It is hilarious. It goes for this whole, like, it presents itself like with this whole Dark Souls, FromSoft style intro scene where this woman's like, the forces of dark and light and the baboons and the baboons, just the theme of the baboons and hot dogs, but it does this whole voiced British woman doing this intro, this very serious, the threat of dark and light, and then if you cancel out the game and then log back in, it comes up with this very Dark Souls style menu screen. But then you have these stories of the treble clef, the treble clef baboon and this, that and the other, and you're fighting, and then you have this little demon thing. And they are all coming out with the silliest scripts ever. You can unlock a gassy trombone, and you don't know how to live until you have played Silent Night with a gassy trombone. You know what? When my choir was singing that on stage and that, I knew there was something missing, and clearly the gassy trombone was it. There's a character, you can pick different characters, and on the male characters, one of the options is Horn Lord. What more do you want from your game? This was so silly. It took me 6 hours to complete. There is an element of grinding that can get a little tedious, and I do not know why I cannot, for the life of me, get an S rank on O Canada. It has become my new life's goal to get an S. To get an S rank on that song. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's so annoying. You've got the theme from a 2001 A Space Odyssey, and you have these massive long gaps. It gets longer and longer between, when you do the next section. And in the last section, you're sat there waiting. You're waiting. You're waiting for that. And all of a sudden, your little character, there's this little sound of a... And you can't help but laugh. Yes, I'm that immature that a little fart... It doesn't matter. I know it's there to distract you. And it works. It has this whole trading card system where you have to collect them. They have these fascinating facts about classic musicians, composers, and trombonists. It's just insane. You do not notice. I can stand here and explain it, and you'll be like, what is she on? But you do not know what you are on until you experience this game for yourself. Honestly, if you like rhythm games and that, you will definitely enjoy this one. It is so silly. You have these trading cards you have to collect. They have these information. I don't know how accurate some of the facts are. Now, I don't question the facts about how many hot dogs some of these composers could eat. I'm sure that is all absolutely true. But the other stuff about their background and their impact on music, I don't know how made up that stuff is. But you have to, if you collect multiples, you can flush them down the toilet to gain turds. I don't know what it was about this year, 2022, and turds, because you had Culture of the Lamb, which was obsessed with it, and now Trombone Champ, pretty much within a similar quarter of the year. You can flush them away to gain turds, which you then trade in to either make other cards, or you have to trade them for this other element of the game. It is so bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre. I was sat there at the end of the game just completely...
The era of the Trombone Champ.
What? What the hell is this game? Seriously, if you want a silly time, if you just want a fun rhythm game, I highly recommend. it's not much. It is, like I say, it's a silly throwaway game, and yet somehow puts so much thought into it. It's ridiculous. I really recommend it, and that's why it's my number 2 of the year. I mean, well, that's appropriate. I didn't even consider that when I wrote this list. Yeah, that's Trombone Champ. I don't want to give too much away. I've probably given too much away as it is, but yeah, that was Trombone Champ. But my final game, the best game I played all year. If you've seen my videos, you can probably already guess what I'm leading to, what I haven't mentioned already. It is God of War Ragnarok. You know what? I had God of War on previous list. It shouldn't be a surprise it's here. This continues the story of God of War 2018. And it is so good. It is so much fun. You're now you're still following Kratos, but now Atreus is growing up, and they're all, debating his role as Loki and the coming Ragnarok. You've got Odin and Thor turning up. I don't remember who plays Thor, but you've got Richard Schiff as Odin, which was fun to see. It's just really enjoyable. The combat is slightly more refined, and more enjoyable. Especially, I'm playing it on God of War difficulty, so some of those, learning the new combat system with the rings, the combat kind of to give you an idea of whether it's an attack you can defend yourself against or not. The thing I love about the God of War mode difficulty is it's very much like a FromSoft, where you have to learn the patterns. And it's very rewarding when you succeed, even if it might take you several hours to do so. The story's great. The voice acting, as last time, is on point. Chris Judge is still amazing as Kratos. And the kid, I don't remember the name of, who plays Atreus, has really grown in that role and brings that baggage of the character with him. I found it really engaging. I've not completed it yet, but I just really enjoy it. My biggest issue is, so with the first game, they were like, can we make like a one-take, follow them everywhere. So you go from action, gameplay to cutscenes, and never have the camera cut between shot of characters, where it swings round and is dynamic and moves with them. And that's amazing. But in this game, it just gets a little annoying, because you have action scene immediately into cutscene, and you're just sat there going, I'll get to play again in a minute, and it feels a little self-indulgent with the cut into cutscenes for that kind of one-take style. We're keeping the pace going, except when you're then going through another rock crevice or whatever, where you're trying to shuffle through, the immersion is totally broken, and you're just like, look, I know this is a loading screen. Don't take the mickey. Don't take me as an idiot, kind of thing. So that I just felt it was a little too showy and too indulgent with that stuff, where it's like, look, there's another cutscene. Can you tell that we're cutting between gameplay and cutscene? And I'm just like sat there like after 5 minutes of gameplay, and I'm like, I get to see it for another cutscene while these two yak on for ages. And I love narrative-driven games. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that. But yeah, it just got a little over the top and a little annoying. I'm just sat there going, oh, wait, another one. I'll be with you in a minute. So yeah, it felt a little annoying on that front. But otherwise, combat is fun. Story time. Story time with Kratos. Yeah, storytelling, voice acting, all amazing. Nicely done. Excellently done. And rewarding. And I highly recommend it. I can see people arguing in the comments already about Elden Ring versus God of War. Like I said before, I unfortunately did not play Elden Ring enough to give it a full ranking on this list. But I can understand why people had that debate. Because I think you can take very different things from the two games. And obviously just the storytelling and presentation in God of War is very different in a way. But I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the last game. So I think what Santa Monica have done here with their revival of the series to make Kratos, you know, who is still battling against his past, to have characters like Thor saying, oh, you thought you could come here and just move on? That's not how it works. And you're like, these people that are aware of his past and that. And dredging it up for him, and he's trying to move on, and he's, you know, grieving still. Even this, you know, even after this time, he's still grieving. And you can really feel that pathos and stuff like that. So I think it's really well done. But yeah, that was God of War Ragnarok. Really well, really worth the wait. I can't wait to see more. It's funny because after God of War, I met Christopher Judge at a convention. I'd met him before. And I said, you know, is there going to be more? And clearly there was going to be more because we got that teaser at the end. But he was like, I can't comment. And it was like, why? And I think I mentioned this last time. And he was like, what? He's like, I can't comment. And I'm like, but would you do any if... I can't comment. I was like, ah. So to finally get this was definitely worth the wait. But yeah, that was my list of 2022 games. Like I say, nothing I really hated. Even though I put Aperture Desk Job at the bottom of the list, it's not that I hated it. It was disappointing. And I think that's the thing with a lot of the games I played that were lower on the list. There was just something that really dragged them down, and something niggling that just stopped me really, really enjoying it. So, but please check out, please share your thoughts if you have any on any of these games. Share your games of the year. Especially if you've got games you'd like to suggest that I should check out that I haven't mentioned here. I'm looking forward to games to see what happens this year, what new stuff I get introduced to, be it new or old. I've got a couple games downloaded and that I'm really looking forward to checking out, like Disco Elysium. I know that was really good, rated really good a couple years back. I finally picked it up, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. And yeah, there's just a lot of stuff, and I'm looking forward to making Gaming Disabled videos on a lot of things. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in seeing more videos. Please share your thoughts. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you somewhere down the line.